All right, let's create a new project called MegaRoster. First, I'm going to mookdir for it. I am in the folder where all my projects for the bootcamp live. Mookdir, MegaRoster. Don't forget to change into that directory. Now, in the past, what we've done is initialize a new Git repository here and then push it up to GitHub. Let's do it the other way around. Let's create it on GitHub first. Let's go out to GitHub. Create a new repository. Call it MegaRoster. And hit create. Now they give us two sets of instructions. One for creating a new repository on the command line and one for pushing up an existing one. We've done the second one before. We're going to do the first one this time. So let's read through these commands first and get a feel for what they're actually doing. That's pretty small, isn't it? So echo is just a command line command for printing something to the screen. So we're going to print this, hash space MegaRoster. This little thing, which we sometimes call the shovel operator, redirects the output of the previous command, meaning instead of printing it to the screen, we're going to write it to a file. So everything that would have gotten printed on the screen is instead going to get written to the file readme.md. MD for Markdown. Now I want to point out here, notice there's no command in there to make a new directory or something. So you need to have already made the directory where this project's going to live before you start running these commands. So I'm already in my MegaRoster directory. Instead of copying and pasting all of these, I'm going to do them one at a time and see what happens. Echo, MegaRoster, readme.md. Let's go ahead and open up code in this directory, code space dot. So you understand dot there represents the current directory, so I'm opening the directory itself in code. If I wanted to open a specific file, not yet. Don't do that yet. What's that? I'm sorry? Was that an answer to a question or something? What did you say? Who said something? Oh, mkdir. Git init initializes an empty Git repository in the current directory. So if you did that in your home directory, it's going to create a hidden .git folder that you're going to want to delete. Because you're going to, somebody did that this morning and had 9,000 files in his new repository. So if you do need to delete a Git repository, it creates a hidden .git folder. If you're on Windows, it won't be hidden. But if you're on a Mac, it'll be hidden. But you could see it with an ls-la. So ls lists the contents of a directory. -l gives you a slightly more readable one. A shows you hidden files. So right here, all I have is readme and then the current directory and the previous directory. So we'll run that command again in a minute. But for right now, all I'm doing, I created the directory. I ran this echo, and now I'm going to take a look. So what I was starting to say was if you wanted to open a specific file in code, you would just say code space the path to that file. So I could say code space readme. But then we'll just open that one file, and I kind of want it to open it as a project. So I'm going to open the directory instead. So here that is. Let's go ahead and do this. And here's readme, and notice there's already a line in there with what it said. So readme.md, MD is for Markdown. Markdown is just a little text language that can be easily translated to HTML. And the nice thing about it is it's still very readable raw. You don't have a bunch of tag soup all over the place like an HTML file. So this little hash makes this an H1. If I just start typing some stuff, now that's going to be a paragraph. If I put a blank line in something else, that's a new paragraph. So that's what it looks like, right? In plain text, it looks like a couple of paragraphs. And it gets translated into paragraphs in HTML too. So Markdown is a pretty convenient way to author content quickly. You can make bulleted lists. Looks like a bulleted list, right? But in the asterisks there like that. And in Markdown, that's how you make a UL. So pretty convenient. Don't necessarily need to do that right this second. All right, now it says to run git init. And we learned yesterday that once we have this project open in code, we can get to a command line by hitting Control backtick. Backtick being that key that you use to denote a template string. So I see I'm in mega roster. So I run git init. Initialized empty git repository in this directory. And notice it tells you, it puts it in this little .git folder. Now if I say ls, I won't see that folder. I only see readme. If I say ls-la, make this a little wider. Well, too late because it wasn't wide at the time. There we go. Now I see .git. So what's in there? Does it show up here? It doesn't. It keeps it hidden. Let's change into that .git directory and say ls. Okay. I have several files in there. One of them is config. Looks like hooks, info objects, and refs are directories. Head, description, and config. Let's look at config. There it is. I don't know what any of that means, but it's neat. Next, git add readme.md. Before we run that, let's run git status. This operation must be run in a work tree. I meant to do that up a directory, not inside the git directory, inside the mega roster directory. Git status, initial commit, in other words, I haven't committed yet, untracked files. Nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Untracked files means they've never been added previously. Git doesn't know anything about them. So we know that right now, where's that file? Where's readme? It's in our working directory or working tree, right? It's not part of the repository yet. And the very next instruction is to add it. Git add readme. I'm going to type RE, hit tab, so I don't mistype it. There we go. Now, we expect it to be here, right? It's in the index. It is staged to be committed. Let's run git status again. Sure enough, changes to be committed. This new file, readme.md. Cool. Then it suggests that we commit. Let's do it. Git commit -m first commit. Now, if we say git status, nothing to commit, working tree clean. So when we hit commit, readme went from the index or the staging area to the actual repository locally on our machine. So now there are no changes in the working tree. The working tree matches the repository. If we type git log, we can see our commit. First commit, there it is. So next it says to run git remote add origin and then the URL of this repository. We did that yesterday. So we know we are adding a remote, which is what we call any remote copy of this repository that we want to sync with. We named it origin, which is the usual name, but it could have been something else. And then the specific URL of this GitHub repo. Okay, so now it's there. And because it's there, we can push to it. Now, if I were to just hit git push now, it's going to tell me the current branch master has no upstream branch. In other words, I haven't told it what remote and what branch on that remote to sync with. So the next suggestion up here is git push -u origin master. Git itself suggests git push set upstream origin master. -u and -- set -upstream are the same thing. -u is a little easier. Git push -u origin master. And something seems to happen. So now let's refresh this page since I'm right on the page for Mega Roster. I could also just click here, but refreshing will do it. And now I see that README is there. I see my commit message. And life is grand. What if I hadn't put that README there? Let's remove it. I mean, you don't need to do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm just going to demonstrate something. Let's remove README. Let's commit that removal. Let's push that. This time I can just say push. I don't have to say origin master because of that -u flag last time. Now let's refresh this. There is no README. And notice that GitHub thinks that's a bad idea. Help people interested in this repository understand your project by adding a README. So it's giving us a way to add the README from right here inside GitHub. Let's do it. Add a README. Yay, #mega roster. I think this will be a paragraph. This next thing will be a list. Thing 1, thing 2. Let's hit preview. Hey, it's an H1. It's a paragraph. It's an unordered list. Neato. That's Markdown for you. I think, let's see, they don't give you a link right to documentation for Markdown, but it's pretty easy to look up how it works. But it remains nice and readable in its raw form, and it translates to HTML when you actually view it on GitHub. So if I want to save these changes, notice it says commit new file. And I can write my commit message right here. Now by default, the commit message will be create readme.md, which seems like a reasonable enough message, so I'm going to leave it and hit commit new file. Now the readme's there. It's in my tree here. And now I have an extra commit. My last commit committed on GitHub create readme.md. And I don't have that commit on this machine, do I? I don't have it on my actual laptop. So to get it, I can say git pull, the opposite of push. And it takes changes that have been put on GitHub and takes them down to my local copy. There we go. Fast forward, it says. It's fast forwarding a commit. And we see README was the thing that changed. It added 6 lines to it. Et voila.